So, and then on the flip side of the many jobs that you have, what made being a music fan and a fan of live shows and a fan of seeing bands, what turned that into like, I want to book shows and I
Yeah.
want to, I want to promote and do all these things.
So in high school, I actually used to intern at a bunch of radio stations. KCRW was one of them. Q104.3, which is like an indie station, and then I did a lot of like the bigger like KLOS and things like that, which all LA based stuff. But I did work at Q104.3 here in New York, which is the classic rock station for a summer. So I played music. I always loved music growing up. I worked at radio stations, and from there I kind of got hooked on like a lot of like local acts, and I felt like there needed to be more done for them, and kind of like as that like almost famous dream.
Bless your heart.
I feel like I'm that kid from the guy from Almost Famous. Like I watched that movie when I was younger, and when I first saw it, I was like, why is this guy literally me? Like following around a band, being a journalist, because that's what I eventually did. Like I went to a very strict high school, and I interviewed a band that I really liked, a local LA band, and I submitted the interview for the paper, and they edited it to like basically nothing, because they're like, we can't have this in our paper. If you talk about musicians, it's gonna like influence people to do drugs. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
No,
like,
if I talk about drugs, it's going to influence people.
Yeah, and like I was like, you have no idea what kids do outside of school, and also like now we're at like the peak of like dial-up internet. Now we're getting like search engines and stuff, so like people are finding stuff on the internet. So I don't know where like a little news article was going to like undo all of what like Dare did, but anyway, so I basically was really disappointed because I had worked really hard on it. So I submitted it to a bunch of magazines and newspapers around town, like just emailed them like, hey, like, you don't know me, but like, this is something that I wrote, and I feel like this band gave a really good interview, whatever. And it turned out like 2 or 3 of them were like, yeah, this is really good. And they picked it up and they published it on their site and in their little hard copy newspaper when we had those. So from there, they basically were just like, well, we'd love to have you write more. So they would mail me CDs and stuff. And I just started writing a whole bunch, going to a lot of shows. I was very underage for a lot of these shows. So I'd basically like be able to either interview the band at like sound check or have someone like make sure I only saw that band that I was covering, and then I'd have to leave. I had to do that at the Viper Room. They're like, you can stay for the band that you're covering, but then you have to leave, because I was like 19. So that was a lot of how I got more into like the industry side of music. And then when I moved to New York, I was still doing that. I was getting a couple magazine things here. I was just going to like hundreds of shows. Like it was like, I don't know how I did it. Must have been tired like all the time. I don't know how I did it. And I eventually just, realized I kind of wanted to like elevate beyond writing about music, and like what's a better way to kind of give people exposure, because not everyone's going to read that. So I was like, why don't I try booking shows? So I kind of invented Stalker, which was my blog and my booking company. So I'd review music that I really liked, but then I would also try to put on local shows. I ended up doing like a bunch at CMJ when that was still a thing, and South by Southwest, hundreds of shows in New York. I booked a couple in Nashville also because I have some good friends there. So yeah, it became like a really fun like project, well, more like a labor of love, I would say. I don't made $0 doing it, but I just made so many amazing friends and made so many connections, and like definitely feel like I just felt like I united a community, and I just always celebrated like local music since I was a teenager. And then getting into PR was kind of just like a happenstance thing.